Seasoner
and Co.
Welcome to
Second-Hand Haunting,
where we read ghost stories and try to make sense of them.
Fun of them.
Sense of them.
Fun of them.
Sense.
Fun. Fun
Sense.
of them.
Hey, Ollie.
Hey, Callum.
I think last episode we decided, you definitely wanted to read the story Murder at the Caxton Gibbet
I like to murder.
over, fair, over whatever other story we were thinking of. We didn't get anyone saying anything otherwise, so we're going to go ahead and do that one this week. What do you reckon?
Yeah, sounds amazing.
Sweet. Now, I know you did just a tiny bit of research between then and now. Did you look up what a gibbet is?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, not at all. Could you explain a
keep
gibbet to me?
Should I keep it a secret until it comes up? No. Okay.
Go on. What's a gibbet?
Okay, so a gibbet is when you want to hang someone, but you don't have a handy tree anywhere. A gibbet is what you'd erect. So think of the game Hangman. You know how you do the vertical line and then the horizontal line and then you draw the noose from that?
I mean, how hard would it be to find a tree?
In the middle of a city? Tricky.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Well, what about just a building? Can we just hang someone from a building?
Not tall enough.
Look, complications, huh?
When you want to kill someone, you want the job done right.
Okay. I mean, it is a life. Let's focus on the importance of snuffing out a life.
Hopefully we'll be focusing on what happens after you do so in this story, because remember, This is a ghost story from Haunted Inns by Marc Alexander, 1973. To reach one of the most interesting inns in Cambridgeshire, I drove north from London along Ermine Street, which is one of those incredibly straight roads built by the Romans. It runs from Pevensey in the south to York in the north. Part of it is now known as the A10, while at Royston it becomes the A14.
I always think it's funny, first of all, my first point I wanted to talk about was how interesting that Roman roads are still in use today, because they've lasted the test of time.
Presumably not like the actual original flagstones, but still people needed to get from Pevensey to York.
Okay, fair enough. So you're saying that they've probably been roads that are built on top of roads?
Yeah. I'm not saying that there aren't original Roman roads in the world still, but I think they're probably the minority and national heritage pieces at this point.
Did you hear that joke or a TikTok trend where people were talking about what their boyfriends are thinking about? And it was
yeah.
Yeah, it was
I wonder what he's thinking about.
And it's Rome.
Julius Caesar was really blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Thanks, TikTok. Goodbye, TikTok. Following it north, I came to the small scatter of buildings, which is Caxton Village, and continued driving until I came to a large roundabout, where the road is cut by the A45, running from St. Neots to Cambridge. Look, let's just say, Ollie, we're not in England. You might be able to tell from our voices we're Australian. I don't know where the A10, the A14, or the A45 are, presumably somewhere between York, which I kind of know, and Pevensey, which I've never heard of before.
Or as I like to think of them, roads to hell.
Hey, I'm going there next year. I hope not.
Better bring your pitchfork.
I joke. I'm taking the railways. As I approached the junction, I saw on the right-hand side of the road a grassy mound surrounded by grim-looking gallows. Okay, I guess there's the other name for a gibbet is gallows.
I mean,
I don't know what the difference is.
I wouldn't know what a gallow was. That's interesting. The gallow paints a mental picture, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm not going to look it up, but I assume the difference is simply that gibbet is one vertical and horizontal, whereas gallows is two horizontals with a few nooses in the middle. I don't know.
For sure.
Is it important? Doubtful.
Death machines.
God. No, that would be the guillotine.
I mean...
when you want to murder people efficiently,
then
go to France.
When you want people murdered efficiently, think of the guillotine by Guillotine & Co. We get the job done.
Oh.
Forget the gibbets. Guillotine is all you'll need.
Yeah, keep that blade sharp, ladies and gentlemen, and you can lop the head off as many noblemen as you please. there are no habitations close to the inn, it was a strategic site for one to have been set up as at this intersection of roads, one of England's first toll gates was built in the 17th century.
Bastards.
Oh, is this... Okay. Are they going to be hanging people for simply not paying tolls?
I mean, it sounds like something the English would do.
It does a little bit, doesn't it?
I'm pretty sure
17th
my
century?
ancestor got sent here for stealing a loaf of bread, so...
Yeah, don't pay a toll, murder. Eesh. This made it the ideal place for travellers and wagoners to slake their thirst and, not infrequently, to have a free spectacle of a highwayman or some less glamorous criminal kick off into eternity from the nearby gallows.
Was it just me or, like, at some point in history, thirst just referred directly to alcohol? It was like, you know, when you were thirsty, it was like a beer, right? You're never thirsty for water.
Well, yeah, okay, so two things. One is, I'm sorry, I think they were referring to they set up an inn at the toll booth, not a gallows at the toll booth. Secondly, for a long period of human history, water was just disease-borne.
That's why Jesus did it.
Yeah.
It wasn't because he wanted to get people drunk and have a party. He just wanted to, like, save people from getting typhoid.
Yeah, exactly. Typhoid or just from dehydration because all they've got seawater. But yeah, especially in the 17th century, I think that was still very much the time when water was not to be trusted.
Do you think they called the sea just because that's all I could see? Sorry. Just so you know, listeners, I am not high.
Just so you know, listeners, I am mad. So yeah, back then, beer would have been very low alcohol, but just enough to keep the water free from bacteria, fungi, mold, whatever, algae growing in it.
Good to know.
Yeah. In the cosy bar of the Caxton Gibbet, Mrs. Bishop, the landlord's wife, told me of the legend behind the haunting of the inn. I cannot say I have experienced anything myself, she said, because my husband and I have only been here 3 months. I did not even know the place was haunted until a guest arrived and asked if he could stay in room 1, the haunted room.
So the guest knew?
The guest knew, the owners didn't.
Ah, word gets round.
Okay, so I guess when the old owners were selling it to the new owners, they didn't mention it was haunted.
I bet you after they found out it was haunted, they were like, we have a haunted inn!
Right? 70s is like premium roadside attraction time, right?
Roll up, come one, come all to the haunted inn.
Yeah.
Thrills and something else.
Spooks.
Thrills and spooks at the haunted inn.
You just got to pay the toll. That's why no one's coming.
Not unlike the Grim Reaper.
Oh. Apparently, this room is haunted by a presence, a quote-unquote something, which can make the temperature drop inexplicably. So, a malfunctioning refrigerator, perhaps?
Or maybe it's just a chilly night.
Yeah,
It's
it's
England.
England.
I'm pretty sure it's cold like all the time, isn't it?
Of course, you would expect a place so close to a gallows to be haunted, Mrs. Bishop added. Sure, you know what? If anywhere's going to be haunted, it's a place where people were, like, murdered en masse, right?
Yeah.
Fair.
Makes sense.
If ghosts exist. According
Come
to
stay with us at the haunted inn, where the gallows are only a moment's distance away.
Sunday, half-price rates in room 1. You die to get a room.
Beautiful. Love that pitch.
According to the story, many years ago, the son of the landlord went into a room occupied by 3 guests who had drunk more than was good for them. One man woke up to see the young man going through his belongings. As he began to protest, the landlord's son attacked him and, having killed him, slew the other 2 while they slept to prevent them from giving evidence against him.
Back up a second, sorry.
Yeah.
So there was some gallows, and now the landlord...
Oh, no. Forget the gallows. They're not important yet at all. They might not even be important. What happened is 3 drunk guests were in one room,
okay,
and the landlord's son went in to rob them.
Ah. Okay.
One of the drunkards woke up, killed the landlord's son,
As you
and
do.
then decided to kill everyone else who witnessed his crime.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, that's just a shame, isn't it? It's not what you want.
That's just what happens on a Sunday.
The Haunted Mansion. That's right.
The Caxton Gibbet.
Sorry. The Haunted Inn.
He then dragged the bodies to a well in the yard and dropped them out of sight. But murder will out, and the young man was captured and hanged from the gibbet close to the father's inn.
Can we just talk for a second to like whether or not he'd get away with that if he came clean? Because
I don't think you generally get away with murder if you confess to it.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking that like if the person was like coming into their room and robbing them, and they're like half asleep, and they like grabbed a knife, and they like thought they were defending themselves, and they like killed the guy.
I see, just the first murder, self-defense murder. Well, it's not
Self-defense.
self-defense really, though, is it? Because his own self wasn't in danger. It's just whatever he had in his bag.
How does he know? He didn't know who was entering his room. Maybe it was dark, middle of the night. Didn't see the person's face.
Thought it was a witch. You got to murder witches. We know that.
Absolutely.
17th century.
Thought it was a witch. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to know, but I think that he would have had a better shot at getting out of it if he'd come clean initially than murdering
two innocent people.
Yeah. I'm going to throw it there. I could be wrong. I mean, we know it didn't go well for him.
No. Well, I'm wondering who's this ghost going to be in the inn. Because if it's the ghost of the guy who was hung, why isn't it the ghost of any of the three people who were murdered in the inn? I guess we'll find out.
I think it's usually the murderer when it comes to the ghost. For some reason, I think the ghost...
Yeah.
Ghosts... Oh, I mean, it adds the scarier element to it, though, doesn't it?
Unfair victims tend to be ghosts as well, trying to...
You make good points.
Yeah. Oh, we'll see.
All right, I feel like we should at least have a friendly wager going into...
Ooh.
The next part of the story.
Okay, I like it. All right. What are we putting on the line here? What, like a $5?
Okay,
do you want to make it money, or just who has to go up and get the next drink?
That's more or less what I was thinking of.
Or who has to read the next story?
I think who gets the next drink will work for me.
Right.
So I'm going to stick with the murderer. So I'm going to say that the murderer is the ghost. Come back to... He felt there was like an unfair in the circumstance that he was in, and wants to haunt people for the rest of time before the unfortunate circumstances that he was put in.
Hey, I would have just taken the guess, but I appreciate having the reasoning behind it too. Now, I'm not going to take the null hypothesis here. I'm going to actually pinpoint which other person I think it is, right? Because we've got three other people. Could be the landlord's son who's murdered in the room, or the two other unfortunate drunkards. It's got to be the landlord's son, right?
Okay.
It's not going to be one of these unnamed.
I like how we could both be wrong.
Yeah. Then who gets the next drink? Nala, I guess.
That would be the cat, by the way.
Yeah, it's little Nala. We locked her out today so she doesn't eat the book again. Since then, the inn has been extended, and the well that was once in the yard is now beneath a trapdoor in the hallway. Ooh.
Trapdoor!
But don't you open that
trapdoor? Something's inside there.
Giving me flashbacks here, dude. But I'm hungry. Apart from the coldness in the room where the murders were committed, ghostly manifestations include the sound of footsteps moving about the inn late at night, presumably those of the murderer, as he dragged his victims out to the well. Okay. You might be the winner here. According to Mrs. Bishop, the innkeeper's son was the last prisoner to be hanged at the Caxton gallows. From Payne and Company, the St. Neots brewers who own the Caxton Gibbet, I learned more of the inn's grim history. We might just be veering entirely to something else now.
I am on the edge of my seat.
Although the present houses are much younger than the elderly gibbet that stands nearby, the bars are still redolent with gory tales of long ago. One of the brewery executives wrote? Is this an email? No, 70s. He wrote a letter. Okay. charming.
I feel like I missed what happened there. So he wrote a letter. Why did he write a letter?
Okay, so I think Marc Alexander, the author and journalist here, must have written to the brewery, St. Neots, which is the company that owns the bar. And one of the executives wrote him back to explain that there's a lot of other gory stuff going on around this pub.
Come to the haunted inn.
Yes, yeah. In the 18th century, a man committed a brutal murder in Monk Field in the parish of Bourne. I have no idea if that's nearby or not. I'm going to trust that it is. After which he managed to escape to America. That's not nearby. 7 years later, homesickness drove him back to England and Caxton, where he had grown up. So maybe none of these places are nearby. His downfall came when he had too much to drink. That feels like a running theme in all of these stories, right?
Probably a running theme at the time. Also, I feel like everything's nearby because it's England.
True.
Such a small island. I mean, we're from Australia. We have such a big island, so maybe it's a comparative thing, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, England. Our island's bigger than yours.
He began to brag about his past. The result was that he was arrested and identified as a murderer by a birthmark. He was duly executed on the gallows close to the inn. Now, Ollie, I'm seeing a little problem here.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure in the 17th century, the innkeeper's son was the last person to be hanged at the gibbet.
Okay.
And now in the 18th century, this birthmark murderer was also executed on the gallows close to the inn. So who was really the last one?
Wait. Back up a second. The innkeeper's son
is purported to have been the last person executed.
Oh, was it the innkeeper's son that killed all the people?
No, I'm sorry. No. The innkeeper's son was the thief. So the unnamed person who murdered the innkeeper's son was the last person hanged.
That's what I thought. Sorry. Yeah, I just got confused there for a second. All right, back on track.
I'm glad you're keeping track of this because the publicans sure are not. An unfortunate baker happened to be passing and noticed the hanged man was showing signs of life, the noose not having tightened sufficiently to completely suffocate him.
Ugh, that's not what you want.
Well, no, it's really not. Oh, that's the difference between a gibbet and a gallows.
What's that?
So a gallows... No, hang on, because these are gallows. So I think gallows is meant to have a little trapdoor, right? So the victim falls and their neck snaps, and that's what kills them. You're not meant to be strangling up there. You're not meant to be suffocated to death.
Right. Okay.
That's a bad hanging, that is.
It's a bad hanging, sure. So, yeah, that makes sense. Do you know, I remember hearing about there was like a law or a rule in that they used to hang people, and if they were able to survive after a certain period of time, that they got a second chance. Did you ever hear about something like that?
I have not heard that, but it does make sense because I have heard the phrase hanged until dead, which is explicitly saying, no, you need to be hanged and also you need to die from the process.
I mean, this might sound a bit macabre, but I guess...
We're talking about ghost stories, man.
Yeah. I guess you could say that, like, it would be interesting to see if they were hanging and they weren't completely dying, that someone could, like, walk up and grab them around the waist and, like, pull.
Yeah, if they're a very strong person, maybe. Yeah. But you kind of need the whole weight of a body, I think, at speed to snap a neck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just meant more for like the strangulation of it, although that sounds incredibly unpleasant for the executioner in that respect as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I feel like I'm going too deep dive on the hanging process here.
That's fine. I mean, that's why executioner was, in fact, a job back then. It wasn't just some rando strung person up. Like, no, you appointed a person to do it right.
You'd want to hope they got well compensated for that, considering the grimness and potentially the mental scarring of the job.
Yeah, well compensated and kind of exiled from society. They used to live off on their own, away from everyone else, because nobody could stand the fact that they murdered people for a living.
Makes sense.
And it tended to go from father to son, because, again, the family's already ostracized, so...
Sure.
Someone else pick up the job.
Be a fun thing to bring up in the date, you know? So what do you do?
Yeah, I don't know where the wives are coming from.
Well, look, yeah.
Oh, obviously, the local pub.
Yeah, so look, I like cards on the table. I'm an executor. I do kill people for a living, but I get paid well for it. And it's not
I can keep you in finery.
Yeah, it's not like I'm not like an assassin, so you know, like people know about me. I'm well respected in the community. Well,
it's a part-time job, so I'm home a lot.
Yeah,
I'll be attentive.
Respected, feared, whichever way you want to go with that.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, I could offer financial security, and absolutely. And I'll be home to take care of the kid when I'm not executing people.
Yeah, and also I believe the houses were usually paid for by the Crown. Yeah, the executioner doesn't have to pay their own rent or mortgage or anything. So, cushy job if you want it. The kindly man took pity on the victim and, having cut him down, tried to revive him by giving him some of his bread to chew. For this Christian act, the baker was the next to swing from the gibbet.
Bugger.
Okay, I'll pay that. So, the landlord's son's murderer might have still been the last person to be hanged. Because this guy was hanged and survived. And then the baker was hanged, so what's going to happen here?
And the baker was hanged for like cutting him down and...
Yeah, I guess for intervening in a state-sanctioned murder.
Yeah, well...
I'm now looking forward to like a butcher comes along and saves the baker, and then a candlestick maker comes along and saves the butcher, and the line just goes to this day. Anyone who stays in room 1 on Sunday.
Such a vicious penalty for an act of kindness.
Yeah. The only other potential act of kindness there is to shoot the guy who's hanging and strangling, right? To put him out of his misery, which you probably would not get hanged for.
I know, I just think that maybe they could just hang the person that was set to be hanged and maybe give the guy a slap on the wrist. I don't know. Maybe a year in jail is better than being like hanged. Well, I mean, it's pretty bad jails, but still, like... Yeah. I cut off his hand. You know, honestly, I feel bad for him because, you know, good baker's hard to find. Maybe even more so back then.
Apparently easier to find than a good executioner. Because another local publican's son also ended his days above the mound close to the inn. So the guy who murdered the last publican's son was not the last one to be hanged, even though they said he was. Now there's another publican's son who will be hanged from there. I feel like people have just got the stories confused over the years, right?
Sure.
In 1753, he was hanged there for taking part in a mail robbery.
I get it now. They just hang everybody. Like it comes across.
Had they discovered Australia yet to send their convicts to? Nah, hang them. For 5 months, his body dangled from the arms of the gallows as a warning to others. That's a lot, isn't it? Finally, it was blown down in a high wind. Oh, God. Imagine it being like stormy outside. You'd expect like a branch or something to come crashing through your window. Mm. Not a dead body. Fuck. A Mr. Lurd, a fellow of Trinity College, Cambridge, is said to have examined the body, opening the clothes to see what state it was in. He recorded as finding it, quote, dry and not offensive, end quote. Okay. Sure. A rope noose used to hang from the gibbet outside the inn until, one day, a youth stood on a box and put his neck through it. Well, he's just asking for it. What is he doing?
Kids these days, right?
Kids those days too, apparently. For a joke, his companions kicked the box away, with the result that the gibbet nearly claimed another victim.
Funny joke, guys.
Fucking hell. Inside the inn, several nooses dangle from the wall, while at the bar, a model skeleton swings from a toy gallows. Fitting decor for an inn with such an unhappy history.
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. Make your way down to the haunted inn. 2-for-1 ghost specials.
Oh, that is the end of that story there. Do you think the nooses are nooses that are actually from the local gallows? Or are they just tying some rope up on the wall?
Just some rope up on the wall.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So hang on, so what was the haunting? One of the rooms got cold sometimes. And you can hear footsteps at night. I'm discounting that. It's an inn. Of course there's footsteps sometimes at night.
I mean, it makes sense, yeah. No, it is a bit of a letdown in terms of the haunting. But it's an interestingly gruesome story, so there's that.
No, it's certainly a high body count story.
Especially when the poor baker got killed because of like interfering with the previous hanging.
I wonder if he knew him. He's like, oh no, Greg, I've got to save
Buddy.
you.
I guess he should have waited until
his
cover of darkness.
By a birthmark. So the guy that was saved was the birthmark murderer, who certainly fucking travelled, only to end back home.
I think that none of us ended up winning the bet because the ghost of nobody was really reported.
No, that's a shame. All right.
Bit of a letdown, but...
Nala, fetch us a drink, will you?
But there's always more ghost stories to come with gruesome outcomes and bloody murder and maybe Bloody Marys.
Oh, maybe. Would you like to have some options about what we might want to look at next?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, did you want to continue on the bloody murder category here, or did you want to change categories?
Oh, let's change it up. Let's have a look at a different category.
Let's do it. Now, you did talk about Bloody Marys there. Should we try perhaps a touch of royalty?
Sounds good.
Bloody Mary was like the Queen's sister, right? I think.
No idea.
Okay. Well, next week we're looking at the Talbot Hotel in Oundle. I'm going to have fun saying Oundle.
I'm going to have oodles of fun.